Oof. Thank you for sharing what you experienced and moved through in these portal, this initiation journey that is called the Medicine Womb. It deeply touches me to know that the teachings I bring here are landing in the fertile soil of your wombs. And these teachings come from my own inquiry into what it means to be a woman, what it means to live in a way that feels ancient, feels now, feels integrated, and feels deeply connected to our womb as an oracle, our womb as the sacred chamber for our priestess, for our wise woman, for our guides, for the forces of nature, for our allies to commune with us so clearly. What I share within the medicine womb and within our sacred ceremonies comes from the me that felt that there was something more, felt that there was a way of living, of being with myself, with life, with my sisters, that was not like I experienced life all these years back. I'm walking a spiritual inquiry since 14 years. And it started with my first initiation into shamanism on the mountain called Monchique in Portugal. And my father took me to this retreat. And the title of this seminar, he called it a seminar, the German shaman, said, "What is your place in the universe?" And I was 17. I was like, okay. The shaman turned out to be the father of my father's girlfriend at that time. And he wanted to have and really our first family vacation with me and his new girlfriend and him and his girlfriend's son. And he said, yeah, we're going to participate in this seminar, but we will also go to the beach and have a great time. And I was like, okay. And I arrived there, and it was a deeply impactful moment in my life because I, for the first time, worked with the forces of nature. We got up at 3 o'clock in the morning and collected the morning dew from the leaves, asking for permission for the sacred drops to open and anoint our vision, our heart, our energetic centers. We worked with moksha, which was my first initiation into what it would feel like to work with tobacco all these years later. And within a trance journey with a drum, I had my first flight. I soared into the vastness of the universe, and I was like, wow, this is what I've been feeling there is so much more. And I flew so far away in this journey that suddenly there was like people like moving my body, like, hello? You still there? And the shaman started working with me, and he was like, wow, we almost lost you. You've been so far away. And I came back and I was like, wow, what was that? That was the vastness of truth that I never tasted to such degree. And so in this week that we were there, the leader came to me and he said, I would like to invite you into my library and have a conversation with you. And so I was invited into his study chamber that was full of books and objects and smell that I never smelled before. And he handed me this book and he said, I would like you to look at this book and tell me what you think. And I started looking for the book. I still see the symbols in front of me. It started with very simple symbols. And then the more I turned the pages, the more elaborate and sophisticated these symbols became. And I closed the book. I put it in front of me. And I said, this is the story of creation. And he smiled. And I looked at him and I said, and if you put the first and the last symbol together, it is a butterfly. And this was my first initiation into understanding the power of life, stages of metamorphosis, and the necessary phases to start discovering our wings. And that ultimately the story of creation will always be reborn and revealed in its own perfect moment. Sometimes in the phase of the chrysalis, where the old has already been shed, but the new hasn't fully arrived yet. And it can be a very uncomfortable stage of, what am I going to do with all these things, this wisdom that I gathered? I'm feeling this new woman emerging from the inside out, but she's not there yet. So be patient with all the activations and the teachings that you received from the sacred medicine. After this journey to Portugal, I came back to Berlin and I was in the middle of my A-levels. And I was like, wow, like my life will never be the same again. And so after I finished my school, I went to India for the first time. And this was where my inquiry and my studies with the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine started. I got to read Osho for the first time. And I remember reading this book and I was writing everything down. I was like, you cannot forget this. I have a masculine and I have a feminine. And it's such a revelation. And my feminine, these are the qualities that guide me. My masculine, I'm like, oh, I don't have this quality yet. And I started seeing like this work of polarity, of a sacred balance, as this map of consciousness that really deeply guided me into finding myself in sacred union within. I started studying sacred sexuality and tantra, and when I had my first full body orgasm meditating in an underground cave in India with this man, I was like, see, I always knew there is more. There's so much more. There's so much more vastness to everything that exists. And the more I unveil, the more I get to taste of this vastness of the universe. The more I get to be moved and open to receive the wisdom of creation of the Great Mother, Great Goddess, Great God, Great Spirit, Wakantanka, all the elements and guides and forces that are here to teach us. And so I kept on digging and started holding my first women's circles in Berlin, where I come from. And I look back with so much love to my first apartment, and holding these circles. I had no idea what I was doing. But all I knew was that I had to do it. I just had to do it and start sharing our hearts and our vulnerability and our dreams and our fears. And I always was a little bit of a hub because I lived kind of at a really cool center in Berlin, so I had lots of people always coming to me, and there was always tea, and at that time there was also a lot of champagne, just because it also brings together and it's a spirit of celebration. And then I went to a festival in Poland in the forest. And I went with my biggest friends group at that time, and they're still my friends. I love them dearly. Sometimes they get upset with me because I call them my old friends, because they're so different from like the people that I now hang out with, and they're like mystery. Like, don't call us your old friends. We're still part of your life. Like, we're your friends. We're your tribe. And so I went there with my friends, not with my old friends. And what happened next was that with my closest brother at that time, we went out dancing, and on the first night the festival was just opening, and we went to the dance floor and I had to pee. And I went into the bushes a bit further away of the dance floor. And then a man came and he started touching me, and I froze. And then another man came, and I thought he would be my savior, seeing what was going on. But he joined the other man. So in this festival I was violently raped. And that night turned out to be one of the deepest initiations that made me share what I share with each and every one of you here. I found myself unconscious waking up without my pants by a fire. My body was hurting and I was very confused. It took me a long time to find my way back to the tent, and I tried to sleep, and the morning was already there, and my best friend was there with me, and she looked at me and she said, "What happened?" I said, "I lost my pants." And she looked at my arms and she said, "You not only lost your pants." She took me into a safe space of the festival, and I got taken into this teepee where I was warmed by blankets, a fire, and tea. I fell unconscious several times and was brought to a hospital for whichever reason they decided that, and went under abduction to take traces. Afterwards, I was brought back home, and I had my friends watching me for weeks and weeks, taking shifts because I was so depressed. I was so ashamed and so hurt I couldn't wipe my own with paper because I couldn't touch myself anymore. I went through a very deep initiation of the dark night of the soul and discovered many layers that led me to this moment where I was abused. And in a moment where I wanted to take my own life, I rang a suicide hotline. I was like, I'm standing on my balcony. I was living in the 5th floor in Berlin. And I said, I'm going to kill myself. I cannot live like this. And there was a man on the phone, and he was like, so strange. Like that it actually, he was my savior. Bless his life. I got so upset with him. And that was the first sensation that I felt within a period of 3 months. It was my anger that brought me back to life. And my anger fueled a prayer, and I said, God, please show me the way. I want to live so fully. And I heard a little voice. South America. I was like, what? South America. And I was like, okay. And I was like, okay, this is it. Like, I have to go to South America. And the warrior woman I am, I finished my bachelor thesis, defended it, received my bachelor title, went to work like crazy for 3 months, earning as much money as I could, and went to Skyscanner and looked for the cheapest flight from any city in Germany to any Spanish-speaking country in South America. Because I knew I had to connect with the Spanish. There was a deep healing gift for me in there. And so the cheapest flight I could find was from Frankfurt to Iquitos, which is the capital of Ecuador. So I arrived in Ecuador, and I was forced to stop in the Dominican Republic because I wasn't registered on the connecting flight. And I met a man, his name is Ricardo. I recently visited him with Aya and Ra because he's been such an impactful man in my life. This love that opened within us towards each other healed me and also taught me Spanish. So the first time I started feeling desire in my womb, in my yoni again, I wanted to make love with him. And when it came to the moment to make love, I was crying so much and I was just completely closed. I wasn't ready yet. And I said, I'm sorry. And he looked at me with his beautiful eyes and he said, it's not you. It's not you what you're feeling here. You don't have to be sorry. You're healing. Shortly after that, we went on a road trip and I discovered a tribe, which name I won't reveal now, where I had my first experience with the medicine of ayahuasca. In Ecuador. And there was a shaman with his 2 sons, and he had a vision of a white woman arriving and having to receive this very special ceremony. We continued the road trip and I knew I had to come back on my own. And so I went back on my own to receive my first medicine ceremony with the sacred medicine of ayahuasca. And so there I was, 3 weeks being in South America. And I learned the language very quick, but I was still grasping for expressing myself and fully understanding everything. The ceremony, he had this maloka with a fire, and it was full of cobras and glasses and jars and animals and all kinds of weird looking potions. Now I understand that he wasn't a shaman, but he was a brujo. A brujo is someone that is considered in the medicine world as, how do you translate this word, brujo?
Male witch.
Yeah, it's a male witch, but it carries this connotation of being a black magician. Yes. And he served me the medicine, and I started purging so much. And in the jungle, often you go out of the Maloka. You don't have a bucket. You don't have. Sometimes they give you plastic bags when you drink in ceremonies with like South American tribes. So you patch into this plastic bag, but there was no plastic bag. So I said I had to purge, and he was like, "Okay, let's go outside." And I had to release my guts, and I almost fell unconscious because it was a very strong purification. And so there I was, like hanging on the hands of this brujo, shitting and puking in front of his feet at the same time. And something came and like touched my bum. It was like an animal that wanted to eat the poo. I was like, wow, this was a wild moment looking back into really understanding what it means to do unveiled medicine work, but there's no shame. It's just, okay, this is the process, it has to happen. And I went back into the Maloka, but nothing happened. And I said, nothing happens. And he said, what, you're not feeling the force? And I was like, no. And he said, okay, I'm going to serve you another cup. So I had another cup. And then nothing happened. And I said, I'm not feeling anything. And he became really agitated and frustrated. And this frustration was making me feel really unsafe. And suddenly, I said, like, I wanted to go to my bed. And so I was brought back to my hut, and he left. Komm gleich, ja? Lässt uns noch kurz in Ruhe? Oder setz dich kurz zu Klee, wenn Mama teilt, ja? Schön nice sein, ja? When he left and I was in my bed, the full force of the medicine opened. There was colors, there was visions, there were spirits, and she was beautiful. The next day I received my flower bath, which is a traditional ritual like I shared in our opening ceremony. And then he took me on a walk into the jungle. And then he said, to heal you, I will share this very special ritual. And you have to trust me. And you can't tell anyone, otherwise the healing will not occur. And I was desperate, I wanted healing. And so he kneeled down in front of me, opened my skirt, and started abusing me. I froze again, and then suddenly became really angry. And I said no, and he said, you cannot tell anyone. So he silenced me, and it took me 5 years after this journey to even start speaking about this. So my journey with the medicine deeply initiated me into a very rustic and unveiled space of space holding, but also into the very strong need of meeting medicine carriers with a deep level of integrity. And there's a lot of shadow out there in the medicine work. There's a lot of intensity and misuse. There's people serving the medicine without initiation, without blessing, without diets, without preparation. And so I continued my travels, and I arrived in Peru, and it's a long story. But I kept meeting one tribe after another and traveled to far places. I skipped the Sacred Valley. I have never stayed in this entire year. I was in South America in a hostel. I always did couch surfing to meet the people, to know what it is like to live as locals. And I kept on meeting more indigenous wisdom. And then I came to Bolivia. I received my first Wachuma ceremony, and Then I was guided for another 2 months of Peru, and I arrived on the Lake Titicaca. And Lake Titicaca is the sacral chakra of this earth. There's many power spots on this planet who represents like the earthy centers of wisdom as a crown chakra, heart chakra. And so I arrived to Lake Titicaca, and I was alone there. I thought I would stay there for 2 days. It's a tiny island. Isla del Sol, the island of the sun. And I received such strong activation and healing there. I was initiated spontaneously by the energies of the sacred sites and the temples into energetic birthing. I gave birth and let go of all this pain that my womb was carrying, and started opening into the mission that I have here on this planet. To acknowledge that I came here to help transforming the pains of our collective through the initiations of strong and painful experience within my own life that initiated me deeply into the possibility of holding other people's through strong initiations in their own lives. I started seeing the story of creation and the stars and my communion with the sky, the star priestesses, the beings that are out there, benevolent and powerful. And I awoke more and more and more to the truth that was hidden from me, hidden behind the layers of conditioning and society, hidden in the pain that I was carrying. And this journey changed my life. My trauma of sexual abuse changed my life. And this is what I keep on sharing. And many of you have repeated this in the circle today. You have a choice. And you can choose that the trauma, when it's integrated and healed, can empower you and initiate you into the deepest strength that you carry for yourself and for those loved ones around you. Or you can decide to stay a victim of the story. But it's just a narrative. And who are you beyond the narrative? So much more. Many of you shared today they met the goddess, they unified something that feels like opposite, and they realized that there is only love. And yes, there is only love. Our deepest pain is a deep gift. It is a deep love that helps us to be a connected, deeply grounded, centered, intuitive, powerful, soft, strong, vulnerable woman. The stories that your womb carries are so sacred and so meaningful. The stories and the pain that you're carrying hold deep initiation. And like in one of my songs that I sing, you are a prayer, you're a song. The goddess dances inside you. In your womb, you hold deep truth. In your womb, you hold the keys. In your womb, you find eternal love. And this is how what I share today and call womb shamanism, what I teach within the medicine womb, was born from a deep violation and trauma that I experienced and held in my womb. So my work and what I share is about unveiling the separation. There's not the pain in the story, and then there's you. It's everything is you, and yet you're never broken and you're always whole. If we can connect with the teaching of each specific life experience that feels so traumatic and overwhelming, then your trauma will be your biggest activation and your biggest gift. And this is what makes us strong. What makes us strong are these moments in life that are the dark hours of the soul, that are the depression, that are the abuse, that are the child loss, that are all these things that we endure. The loss of a loved one, an accident, all these things make us strong. Strongly centered into our womb. And for this we need elders, for this we need teachers that hold this wisdom, that hold this leadership with integrity. For this, as women, we need women to have walked this path, to know the pain, and to support each other by welcoming it, loving it, blessing it, and allowing it to transform us into the most wildest version of woman that we never thought we were. My 17-year-old didn't think that I would be sitting here right now in the Spanish olive mill, sharing with 20 women all this. It's a cosmic joke. And yesterday, after our ceremony, I walked into the yurt, and recently my beloved grandmother Ruth died. And many of the objects that are here in Eden, the carpets that you have in your rooms, the glasses we receive from, are her things. And I found a magical way to bring over most of her belongings when the apartment was closed. And one of the belongings is a painting of my 7-year-old. Yesterday night I walked into the yurt and I looked at myself. I was like, my little girl's called Sheenie. My birth name is Shireen. Shireen Marijke Elisabeth Kleeberg. And it's beautiful because when I diet with my maestro, and like you experienced in your diet with the tobacco, you hold open your hands and you're being asked for your full name. And so my maestro, he calls me Mujer Misteriosa, mysterious woman. But he also calls me Sharincita. I am both. And there is no separation. Oh, mamai. There is no separation between the inner girl, the crone, the mother, the fierce warrior, the dakini, the temple keeper, the priestess, the wise woman, the wild woman, the witch, the powerful force of the curandeira, benzedeira, rezadeira. You are it all. And the more you choose to trust in God, in Goddess, in your path, the more this will reveal. The more of you, the true you, will reveal. And everyone can do this. But it's best done in a circle of sisters. And sometimes in darkness, and sometimes in the candlelight, but always in the deep blessing of the divine grace and love. The final part of this sharing, when I hold the feather, is always a strong moment for me. It's a moment of deep reverence, humility, and gratitude to all the pain, to all the wounding I experienced with women, with man, my parents. ancestors. And a deeper invitation of trusting that it couldn't be more perfect. It couldn't be more beautiful. And like Lucilla was sharing, even the purging, everything was so beautiful. And I celebrated it, and Nini was sharing, enjoyed. It was so much fun to let go. And yeah, it is. Because wow, what comes afterwards, you know? Wow! There is so much excitement for when you create space for what can come to root and be in your being. And the light that I see in your faces and in your eyes is the dawning of a new way of being. An ancient way of being that feels deeply aligned with your womb and to the womb of the Earth Mother. So I give thanks to all the sacred medicines that communed with us. To my maestro Josué Pérez Rios and his maestro Ernesto. Give thanks to all my teachers, my Sinchis, to all the divine forces that support this deeply initiatory work, this work of homecoming into our womb. And I'm not going to share about how to integrate such immense experiences yet, because we still have 2 more days to go. And remember that there is always a next ceremony.